Welcome back, and in today's video, I'd like to discuss a question that was posed to me by someone in the comment section of my YouTube videos, and they asked, what is the difference between an apprentice when you transition to a journeyman? Like, what are the things that you should know? What is every journeyman required to know? And this question also applies to people that have been in non-union jobs, residential jobs, and they've been there for a long time. Like, if they're gonna transition to a union carpenter, what should they know to just get their journeyman card? And that's a question that's been posed by a lot of people. I know for myself, when I was an apprentice going on my 7th and 8th term, I was very nervous about it. So we're gonna talk about that in this video. First and foremost, the carpentry field, I said it 1,000 times, I'll say it 1,000 times again. It is so extensive that there is no one way to be a carpenter. There is no one way to be a certified journeyman. You're gonna have strengths, you're gonna have weaknesses, but the main difference between an apprentice and a journeyman is the responsibilities and the pressure. With great money comes great responsibility. You get paid more as a journeyman, so you should be more efficient. You should be more effective, right? Apprentice, when I first started off, they made half the wages of a journeyman. So that pretty much implies, by just the money aspect, that you should be twice as efficient as an apprentice. Now, is that always the possible outcome? No, but you should be effective enough that you should run circles around apprentices. If you're a first-year apprentice, you're pretty much just a body. You don't really have, the faculties to make the best decisions. You make a lot of mistakes. And so a journeyman should be running circles around lower level apprentices. Now, as you get higher in your apprenticeship and as you learn from mistakes, as you gone to the training center and got tuned up and learned different little tips and tricks throughout your apprenticeship, whether it be at the school or being on the job site, you should bridge that gap a little bit more, right? It should be a little bit closer. But a seasoned journeyman that's been, in the union for, 20 years, he's going to run laps around a fresh journeyman that just might have just graduated, a couple months ago. Because again, that time and that experience and that wisdom, that plays a way bigger role than just having the journeyman card. Because there's so many different things when it comes to carpentry, whether it be working at a chip manufacturer like Intel or working at the Nike complex. There's certain things you're gonna learn in those jobs that might not be applicable to other jobs. And so I've had jobs where we did one concrete system on one building and the next system was a totally different system. We went from Perry to Aluma. Now, there are some aspects that are gonna be the same, but there's gonna be some different factors and there are different functions of different materials that you're gonna have to learn. And so a lot of times I see, young apprentices get mad at journeymen because they're like,
man, I'm so much more efficient at this. Why is he getting paid more than me? And they start getting upset.
They're like, hold on, homeboy, because guess what? That same guy right there that is, kind of struggling with this new material, he can wipe the floor with you 9 out of 10 things. So don't get so caught up in just a single moment right there. And I know I found myself doing the same thing. I was a 3rd-term apprentice. I felt like I was big and bad. I felt like I knew what I was doing, and it only took, the next job to get humbled. You're gonna get humbled so often in the apprenticeship and in your career all the time. Like, there's gonna be new technology coming out. There's gonna be new different details architects want that from new materials. And so there's always a learning process. And sometimes that learning process isn't that easy if you're not willing to humble yourself and say, listen, I need to learn this new thing. I don't know everything. Humble yourself. And that's the key of a good journeyman, to understand he can learn things from everybody around him, not just his superintendent or his foreman. Sometimes apprentices will learn new things from other apprentices at the training center, and they can come back and bring that knowledge. So a quality journeyman is going to be open and willing to listen to everybody to improve his craft. Going back to the efficiency aspect of being a journeyman, I think that's the main thing that's going to really differentiate you between an apprentice and a journeyman, because you're going to be so much more effective. You're going to plan ahead. You're going to have your batteries, multiple of them. You're going to have fasteners, a good amount. You're going to look at the job and say, okay, what do I need to complete this job in the amount of time that's required, right? And so you're going to be able to put those plans together, where an apprentice may run around and grab stuff when he needs it, he's going to be less effective. So the journeyman can go and be a little bit more methodical and a little bit slower, but get everything done while the apprentice is still scrambling around, half built, half not, you know what I mean? And that's the main difference between journeymans and apprentices. Journeymen should, through the process of trial and error, learn how to do things more effectively. And that's why the apprenticeship is as long as it is. It's 4 years. You can complete a little bit faster if you do extra training classes, but the work hours are still the same. So it doesn't matter how fast you get done with your apprenticeship classes, you still need a certain amount of hours with work to be considered a journeyman. And I think that's important because those work hours are where you make the mistakes. You make a mistake on the shop floor in the apprenticeship class, there's no real impact. Like, you're not costing anybody no money. You're not feeling that stress of, someone looking over your shoulder, seeing how effective you are and efficient you are. You can bullshit in those classes. It's going to only hurt you, but you can do that. When you bullshit your job and you're costing people money, you're cutting fresh material, and you're not doing a quality job, you have to tear it down at the wall, people are going to look at you like you're crazy. And so with that pressure, it makes you a more refined carpenter. It makes you a more refined journeyman. And again, you're not always going to be perfect, but you strive to be better than you were yesterday. I think that's the main thing. You want to get better, more efficient, and more effective. Now let's talk about when you're non-union, transferring over to the union apprenticeship or the union journeyman status. Now, I think there is a test where you can test out to see if you're journeyman status. And most of the time, from what I've seen so far in my apprenticeship, I've only been, my apprenticeship and my career, I've been in the union for about 6 years almost. I advise coming in as a, high level apprentice opposed to jumping straight in as a journeyman. Now, the reason why I say that is because obviously tape measurers are the same. Hammers are the same. Fasteners, whatever systems are all the same. But the safety aspect, the things you learn in class about how things are done in a union, the OSHA requirements, that things that we actually follow those standards, and learning the union culture, you need a chance to adjust to that. Because a lot of times guys in non-union, I've seen that transitioned over and they want to go straight to journeyman status because, well, I've been doing this for this many years. Let me get my status. Well, it's like, first and foremost, most likely you're going to be making way more money than you made as a non-union guy as a 5th or 6th, 7th term apprentice, right? You might be making $20 an hour, $24 an hour as a non-union guy, and then you make that same amount like as a first term. So all the other stuff is extra, it's gravy, right? But you want to make sure that you're not making a fool of yourself and putting expectations on yourself that you're not able to undertake when you first get in the union, right? Because there's certain safety requirements that if you don't follow that could be an instant kicked off the job instantly. You know what I'm saying? If you don't know those standards because you didn't go through the training process, or you kind of got thrust right into the middle of work, you're going to find yourself in a lot of trouble. And there's certain things that we do as union carpenters that you won't do as non-union. Like, you're not going to do, periform or big scale jobs as a non-union carpenter that often. Most of that stuff is relegated to union carpentry. So if you want to have that grace period where you're still learning, that's a much better process of being an apprentice opposed to jumping straight in because you just want the most money right then and there. You know what I'm saying? Now, one of the most important things that are going to separate everybody, journeymen and apprentices, it's the safety. You get little to no leeway when it comes to safety when you've journeyed out and you do something stupid, right? Like, if you make a crucial mistake, like if they have a crane pick and there's a red tape line and you cross that on certain jobs, you're out of there, whether that be apprentice or journeyman. But you get less leeway if you're a journeyman, doing stupid things like putting nails in your saw so that the guard doesn't flip back down. If certain jobs catch you doing that, you're fired instantly as a journeyman because you should know better. And you're also teaching apprentices the wrong thing to do when it comes to safety. Now, you would feel horrible if you taught some apprentice a bad technique and he then hurts himself or maims himself because you as a journeyman have been through trial and error and you know what's to do with the saw. A lot of young guys coming in, or just guys with no carpenter experience, they've never touched a lot of tools. They haven't lived around this, grown up around this. So yes, they may be, apprehensive, but they might not be the safest. How many times have we seen guys, initiate apprentices by putting a 2x in between two sawhorses and say, hey, cut down the middle, cut that in half. And then they just go and do it. And they don't realize that the saw is going to bind up, because that pressure, when you cut it, it's going to collapse on itself like that. So there's so many things when it comes to safety, whether it be getting in a boom lift and putting your fall protection on before you get started elevating, being in a scissor lift and making sure that you have the right height, so you're not bumping into pipes, that you're being aware of your surroundings, not being too close to a leading edge for a fall, having proper ear protection, always wearing your glasses. The standard is going to be so much higher for a journeyman, because you should know better. And especially when you've gone through the whole entire apprenticeship, you listen to all the different meetings throughout the years. Usually most companies have a meeting on Monday and they go over all the safety aspects. So if you disregard that stuff then for that long, they're going to have zero tolerance for you, later on in your career. You know what I'm saying? So, and you don't want to have that, the reputation of being someone who doesn't follow the rules and is kind of like a cowboy who just kind of does whatever he wants. That will lead to catastrophic problems if you don't follow the rules. Because if someone was to get hurt or killed because of a mistake that you've made, it'll be tragic. And that's something that you as a person will have a hard time recovering from, because you wanted to go rogue and not listen. So that's the main thing about a journeyman and apprentices. Apprentices, always listen to your journeyman. He may say something to you that will not connect. You will not see the point A to point B, what the distinction is or why you're doing those things, but just listen. And as you get on longer in your apprenticeship, you will learn more and more why these things are done certain ways. Now, I've learned, as far as handrail, why it's important, because we've seen things, go left where people are running around and they're trying to, be productive, and they might trip. And sometimes when you trip, it might not be just a 2-foot thing. You could potentially trip like 10 feet, catch your balance and fall off the leading edge. That's why the handrails, 10 feet away from, the leading edge. That's why we always put up, rope line, tag lines when you're doing something unsafe. Always wearing fall protection, done safely and properly. I'm going to go over some more videos when it comes to that, because it's important. You want to make sure that you're going to come home safe. And that's one of the aspects of journeyman, that you're going to get little leeway when it comes to being unsafe. Don't let the pay fool you. I know that as an apprentice, you might sometimes look at journeyman with envy because they're making so much more money than you. But I can tell you, as I've gone longer in my apprenticeship and I've now finally journeyed out, and I've been a journeyman for about 2 years now, you definitely feel that pressure. There's an internal clock in your mind that you can start sensing okay, listen, this is not efficient enough. I'm not being fast enough. As an apprentice, you're kind of diddling around, just doing what you're told and not really thinking about how much money you're costing a company. But as you get hired on in your apprenticeship or you start journeying out, you become that much more aware of how much money you cost, right? And this money's not coming from nowhere. It's coming from, you being effective enough that the company's charging for your wages, and they're not losing money from you. They're gaining money from your wages. And so you become that much more aware, okay, this task should be done in 4 hours. If you're at 3 hours and 30 minutes and you're not close to being done, alarm bells are going off in your mind. Actually, alarm bells should have been going off at the 2-hour mark. If you feel like you're not halfway done and you're falling behind, now the question is, okay, what am I doing improperly? What can I be doing more effectively? So that's why you need to make sure that when things are going left as a journeyman, that you address it as quickly as possible. Sometimes certain things, you don't know that things are not going to work properly until you start doing it, right? I mean, there's certain unforeseen processes. You may be given a blueprint, you gather material, you bring it all there, you start putting things together, and you see, okay, oh, fuck, there's a pipe in the way. Or, okay, I could put this up, but then they're going to need to take this down because the tapers aren't finished yet. Or, just certain things that might cause problems. So it's good to catch those problems as soon as possible. Apprentices, sometimes they don't realize they're doing something that's going to be a problem later on. And so that's why, you have that leeway as an apprentice. But as a journeyman, if you put up a temporary wall and they still have to do work in that space, it's going to be a problem. So even if your superintendent said, hey, I need this, it's your job as a journeyman to see, okay, hold on, there's a conflict here that I want to address before it becomes something bigger than it is now. And so I think that's important too as a journeyman, is you're going to see certain things that maybe your architect doesn't realize, or your foreman kind of might have oversight. You are the next line of defense when it comes to your work. So you have to make sure that you are, looking out for yourself, but also your foreman, like, catching mistakes before they get too far gone. I also want to take this moment to just say how appreciative I am for the union. Being a journeyman, being able to provide for my family, it's been amazing. Ultra grateful. I will never badmouth the union. If I have my critiques or anything I want to improve, I'm going to work on it myself, or I'll start my own company. But you'll never hear me badmouth the union, because I'm able to provide better for my family because of it. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you guys, and hope to see you guys again. Thank you.